Welcome to the immediate reaction show for UFC Vegas 93. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, your boy on social media at MMALOTN. And once again, I do welcome you to this show where we pretty much record my immediate reaction for every single fight as it concludes. And then I stitch that bad boy together at the end of the night and drop it for you guys on YouTube in one nice little package there. So again, the fights are just about to kick off. So you get my immediate reaction just so everything's fresh in my mind. If there's something small that happens in the fight that I want to, make sure people kind of recognized and realized during the fight, I'm able to point to it with it so fresh on my mind. And then at the end of each segment, I'll also be dropping the odds that cash as I do have them ready to go, just to give you guys an idea of what you could have bet on, what you did bet on. You could probably gloat about it in the comment section as well, and then just to give an overarching view of the consequences of all these fights as they finish up. So appreciate all the love and support. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get right into it. First fight of the night, we got Julia Palastri going up against Josephine Knudsen. This one likely going to the scorecards to see how it ends up playing out. It was a fantastic start for Josephine Knudsen, and it started to get a little bit sticky in the second and third rounds as Palastri was starting to get some takedowns. But we saw some great recovery work for Knudsen in the third round, where she was pretty much controlling the striking for about 3 minutes before Palastri was able to get the fight to the ground. We saw some good defensive work originally from Knudsen to stop the original takedown attempt, but she stuck around in that grappling area a little bit too long, and Palastri was able to get that top control. And then from there, she was able to lock up a arm triangle choke, but instead of being able to transition to the side of the choke effectively, she first had to try to get into full mount, which she did. And then from there, Knudsen showcased great fight IQ by bucking out of that and pulling off a reversal. And I think that ultimately saved her in that fight, as she was able to end the fight with some top control, eventually work back to the feet, and then put a stamp on the fight with a nice little combination. But I still think the amount of damage that she was able to get off in the first 3 minutes of that round was still enough for her to end up getting that decision victory there, 29-28 unanimous on all judges' scorecards. So clearly, Knudsen has some work to do in terms of the defensive grappling. She's showing a little bit of improvements in that round, but better takedown defense, better awareness in terms of, okay, you're out of a takedown attempt. Let's let go of that wizard and try to get back out into range where you are most comfortable and most advantageous in terms of being able to use your striking and lay out the damage that you're able to. So she came into this fight and she might have dropped a little bit in stock and an intimidation factor given the holds that people have been able to see in her grappling game now. So it'll be interesting to see how the UFC decides to move forward with her matchups, if they decide to give her grapplers and how she will fare in those matchups. But she's clearly very talented in the striking realm, and if she's able to keep fights there, she's going to be very dangerous to deal with. All right, let's check out the odds that cash. Knudsen cashes as the -195 favorite. By decision, -110 seemed to be a very popular play this week, and then the over 2.5 cashes at -400. Super chalky there, but Knudsen, as dangerous as she is in the striking realm, only has one win by finish on her 8 professional career wins. Weird that she's been unable to muster up any finishes, especially with how much ferocity that she throws with when she lets her combinations go. So very interesting there, but still undefeated, Josephine Knudsen. Judges had it 1-1 going into the last round, with Shailan getting the first round and Melquizael Costa getting the second round. But they left it out of the hands of the judges as Melquizael Costa snatches up a third round submission victory. I believe it was a rear naked choke. Great win for him there to bounce back after that knockout loss to Steve Garcia that he suffered. And I believe that this was a great performance for him. He kept Shailan working. He put on a high enough pace, at least in terms of continuously throwing up submissions and looking for reversals, knowing that cardio is usually not the best trait in Shailan Nurdenbecka's game. And that's what Costa was able to exploit here, notching that third round submission. So great work for him there. Like I said, getting back onto the winning track here. Let's check out the odds that cash. To Costa moneyline -195, by submission +440, round 3 +1000. Throw those two together, round 3 submission +1900, and the under 2.5 cashes by about 40 seconds at +110. He's trying to flex his English muscles in the post-fight interview. Not the greatest English, but credit and points for trying. Obviously, these Brazilian fighters know that trying to, or at least any international fighter, knowing that trying to speak English will be the best way to kind of sell themselves to the North American public, which is the biggest demographic that the UFC normally has. Credit to guys like Alex Pereira who have shown little to no care in terms of trying to learn English, but still managing to be such a badass and very popular fighter. But guys like Melco Israel Costa definitely need that. So credit to him for showcasing his English chops there, but still needs quite a bit of work there. But regardless, the most important thing, he did manage to pick up a third round submission victory over Shaila Nurdenbeka. Weston Wilson finally gets the victory he's been long searching for in the UFC, and it comes by submission in the first round over Jeka Sergi. He was a big underdog coming into this fight, but a lot of people expected if he were to have some grappling success, it could eventually lead to a submission. That's exactly what ended up happening here, as Jeka Sergi is a guy that just doesn't really have it, in my opinion. He's a big knockout artist, and that can get you a win or two in the UFC. But if you don't have the complete package, things could really run a dry for you pretty quickly, as we saw with Jeka. Jeka showcased some solid takedown defense early, but once Weston really started to commit to the takedowns and start to chain different attempts together, that's how he was finally able to get this fight to the ground and eventually sink in that choke. So great work from Weston Wilson there, sinking in that armbar triangle choke combination that he had and got the tap there just under 2 minutes into that first round. Let's check out the odds that cash here. Wilson plus 280 cashes as the first underdog on the night by submission plus 460. Round 1 plus 600. Round 1 submission plus 800. And the under 1.5 cashes at minus 310. Again, great work there from Weston Wilson. Probably going to be the only win he gets in the UFC, but we'll see that moving forward. He said he wants to get on the Utah card. I believe that's August or September. I could be off in terms of that, but he's looking to bounce back as soon as he can and get back into another W here and probably get some momentum going. But again, very low-level fighter here. This is probably two of the worst fighters on the entire roster. So shout out to anybody that took Wilson here. On my 3 best prop bets video this week, I had the long shot as the round 1 submission prop on Wilson at plus 800. Very happy to hit that as well. But as an official play, nothing there. But I was happy to at least tip that on the 3 best prop spot. But tonight, great win for Weston Wilson. First on submission over Jeka Sergi. Probably the most entertaining fight on the card thus far. Gabriela Fernandez earns a split decision victory over Carly Judas. These women were throwing down from the jump. A lot of big power from Fernandez early in that fight, but there was a lot of volume from the Judice side, and it seemed like near the ending of the first round, it seemed like Fernandez was starting to slow down a little bit, and the momentum was swinging in Judas's favor, and then Fernandez comes out like a bat out of hell in round 2, thinking that she needs to get this fight over with, but then about maybe 80 or 100 seconds into that second round, you saw her start to slow down a little bit. But luckily for her, she was able to get some good time up against the cage, landing some good shots. And even before Judas was able to land that takedown at the ending of the second round, I thought Fernandez did enough through those first 2 rounds to still win that decision there. Third round, you got to give to Judice there. It seemed like she was really starting to pick it up, even though Fernandez was landing some big shots. I do think Judice definitely deserved that third round. I wanted to actually pull up the scorecards here before I started this recording, but I forgot to do that, so I'm just going to quickly run that right now. So yeah, it was the first 2 rounds on 2 judges' scorecards. Adelaide Bird. It was hilarious. I saw her cage side, and I'm like, she's probably going to fuck this fight up somehow, some way. And she scored round 1, and, well, round 1 was probably the only egregious one there. She scored round 3 in Judice's favor, which the other 2 judges as well did. But, Adelaide Bird giving round 1 to Carly Judice. Close round, but I thought it was clear the more impactful shots were coming for the Fernandez side, and it was doing more damage. And I thought Fernandez rightfully got the decision victory there. So Adelaide Bird strikes again, but luckily the other two judges are competent enough to actually give the decision to the actual deserving winner, in my opinion. All right, let's check out the odds that cash here. Fernandez, moneyline cashes at minus 165, by decision plus 160, and the over 2.5 cashes at minus 220. Good work from Fernandez there. She has to manage the gas tank a little bit better. Obviously, it worked out for her this time around, but things got a little sticky in the final round there. It will be interesting to see how better fighters will be able to deal with that power striking style from Fernandez. She did show some decent takedown defense and improvements there, but again, this was a 4 or 5 fight veteran she was fighting in Carly Judice. She's obviously, on the lower end of the stick in terms of, or at least the lower end of the roster in terms of the amount of fights. Let's see how Fernandez can continue this this momentum, the partnership that she has with the MMA Masters, and if they can actually round out her game well enough to get her into the rankings and into title contention. But tonight, step by step, Gabriela Fernandez picks up the split decision victory over Carly Judice. The winner was not surprising here, as Nate Maness is able to get the victory over Jimmy Flick, but more so the manner in which he was able to get the victory, as this fight goes the full 15 minutes, and not a lot of people were expected it to even get out of the first round. I saw Minty Betts actually had the fight to start round 2 at plus 110, which makes you believe that the fight to finish in round 1 was roughly around minus 130. It was a slow grind, but Nate Maness showcased some solid grappling defense to put Jimmy Flick in some bad spots and just wear on him, beat him up, and eventually get his hand raised on the scorecards by unanimous decision. Now, there were some sticky spots for Nate Maness. There was a close guillotine attempt. There was that close it's the Von Flick choke that he likes to call it. But Maness stayed very patient, had a lot of good defensive techniques as well. Like that, when that Von Flick attempt was occurring, he was doing a great job in terms of maintaining the half guard, so Flick was not able to get even more leverage and pressure into that choke. And then another one that I found very interesting was, I believe it was the ending of the second round, where Flick had a guillotine attempt and he fell backwards, and eventually Maness got out of it. But they were like clamped up against the cage, and Flick's head was pretty much just scraping up on the cage, and he was unable to really get any sort of angle or posture where he could throw up an armbar or threaten with any of his submissions, as he has done against opponents in the past. And that's credit to Nate Maness in terms of keeping him pushed up there. Even when you saw Flick trying to angle off, you see Maness kind of just following him and keeping his head pinned up against the cage, so he could not create any sort of space or any type of angle to get a submission off. And while doing so, Maness was doing a great job in terms of landing big punches from that top position as well to score points and make it look even more dominant for himself. So good win for Nate Maness there. A little bit more challenging than people expected it to be, but he still ends up getting the job done. Let's check out the odds that cash here again. Maness, I believe, was the biggest favorite on the card. Cash is at minus 670, by decision plus 550. And the over 1.5 cashes at plus 150. Good win for Nate Maness here. This was he should have won this spot. Let's see if he can go out there and start getting some momentum going. But tonight, he gets the job done. He gets the win over Jimmy Flick. It was a very close fight, but ultimately Adam Fugit gets his hand raised by split decision over Josh Quinlan in a fight that was filled with a lot of kicks from both sides, but it seemed to be a big game plan for Adam Fugit in terms of wearing on the arms of Josh Quinlan, so he was unable to throw with as much heat, which I don't know if it really helped out, but it still obviously got him the win here. He was really attacking the body of Quinlan as well very well with that front kick up the middle, with that jump front kick up the middle that he was doing as well. But very impressive performance there from Fugit in terms of just staying active enough, staying on the outside, and causing Quinlan a lot of trouble in terms of trying to reach the target. When Quinlan did let his hands go, he was landing with some emphasis, and I thought there were some good spots for him, but I thought the volume was clearly on the Fugit side, and he was landing some good shots, the head kicks and all that. Very good look for him there, but again, very, very close. Now, the judges were actually all over the place here. UFC News just dropped the scorecard. So, Junior Chiro Kamijo had Fugit up in rounds 2 and 3, while Anthony Maness had let me start that over. Junichiro Kamijo had Adam Fugim up in rounds 2 and 3, which I agree with. I think that is the correct scorecard. Chris Lee had Fugit winning rounds 1 and 3. I think that's wrong. I thought Quinlan won round 1, and then Anthony Maness had Quinlan round 1 and 2, and then Fugit round 3. So the unanimous, the round there for all the judges was round 3, and then all the other rounds the judges were pretty much split on. Again, I don't know how you give Fugit round 1. I thought Quinlan landed the better shots, especially to the head there. Round 2, that's where you actually see Fugit have a cut over his eyebrow, but I thought that was just from one little exchange. I don't think it was something that was repetitive, and I thought Fugit still did enough with more damage. He even opened up a very small cut over Quinlan's brow as well, not as much as what we saw from the Fugit side of things, and I was really hoping that the judges would not see that cut from Fugit and just say, okay, just because he suffered this cut that looks a little bit worse than what Quinlan had, let's give it to Quinlan. So luckily, two judges did give that round to, two judges actually did give that to Quinlan, but luckily one judge still ended up giving round 1 to Fugit, which again I don't agree with. I thought Fugit won rounds 2 and round 3, but again, very close fight. Can't be mad at either result there. Also, not to mention the live odds. I was very surprised to see the live odds midway through the third round, minus 650 in Quinlan's favor. I thought Fugit, was very close in that fight. So to see him at plus 400, I thought was very surprising. Shout out to anybody that got in on that live line there as well. But Fugit gets his hand raised here. All right, let's check out the odds that cash. Fugit money line plus 110, by decision plus 280, and the over 2.5 hits at plus 115. Plus money all around there, as I believe Fugit is now the second underdog on the night to pull off the upset. Yes, Weston Wilson was the other one there. All right, we got a handful of fights left to go, but in terms of this one, Adam Fugit gets his hand raised by very close split decision over Josh Quinlan. Also, Almabayev picks up a unanimous decision victory over the debuting flyweight Jose Johnson. I should say he was debuting down at the flyweight division in the UFC for the first time. But Almabayev dealt with that long, lanky frame very well. There were some sticky moments where Johnson was able to get his back, pull off a reversal, work back to his feet, but Almabayev did not settle for any bad positions at all, as he was quickly able to work back into a dominant position and then did a great job in terms of staying safe enough, landing good enough ground and pound to keep the fight on the ground, and even threatened with some submissions of his own, but he was unable to get the tap against Jose Johnson, who just recently became a BJJ brown belt. I know a lot of people were kind of questioning Almabayev's chalky spot here, and obviously Johnson made it a little bit more competitive than the 30-27 indicates, but Almabayev clearly making improvements and showcasing that he is one of the best flyweights currently on the roster. All right, let's check out the odds that cash here. Almabayev cashes, I believe, as the second biggest favorite on the card at minus 520. By decision at plus 240, and the over 1.5 cashes at minus 205. Again, great work from Almabayev, and even better work on the mic. Short, sweet, got right to the point. He wants Kai Kara France next. I highly doubt that the UFC gives him that big of a jump up in competition. I think he'd be competitive and probably even wins that matchup, but it's still a long shot for him, especially after beating a guy like Jose Johnson, who was just debuting in the flyweight division. Now, he has a couple of wins under his belt. Now, I believe that's 3 straight now in the UFC. He deserves a ranking. He deserves a top 10 guy at least, maybe even top 15, but not a lot of guys in the flyweight division outside of those, the Kai Kara Francis, Alexandre Pantojas, Brandon Morenos, that are of the skill level of those top guys. So, let's inch Almabayev closer. He's clearly, one of the best guys out there. I'm sure he wants to stay busy and get back in the cage at least once more by the end of the year. And who knows, by this time next year, we could be talking about him as a potential flyweight contender here. But here, big win for him against Jose Johnson, defeating him by unanimous decision, 30-27 all around. Absolutely phenomenal fight. I'm probably going to go down as the fight of the night unless something ends up topping it in the last 3 matchups that we have on the card. But Brady Heaston ends up getting his hand raised by third round submission over Garrett Armfield. Once again, very back and forth. The first round we saw Armfield land or at least snatch up a very close armbar that he was able to get. And then we saw Heastan switched the position. I'm getting their names mixed up for some reason. Then we saw Heastan mix up or reverse the position and do a good enough job in terms of securing the top position himself. I thought it was, let's see if the judges had it the same way as me. Yeah, I thought it was 1-1 going into the last round. Obviously, Armfield drops Heastan very badly in the second round, and for some reason follows him to the ground thinking that he can get the finish, but should have just stayed in that position, let his opponent work back to his feet so that he can just get back on the onslaught of landing his big shots, especially with having Heastan on the skates the way that he did. Again, Armfield is a smart fighter. He comes from a good gym, and you would expect him to, I don't know what he was expecting, thinking that he could just take the fight to the ground, where Heastan likely had an advantage with his pure jiu-jitsu, and we saw him, save himself enough, even managed to get a solid dominant position of his own before the ending of the second round. And then in the third round, we saw that Armfield was very much out of gas at that point, and Heastan was able to do a good job in terms of eventually getting the back and eventually pulling off that submission. So big win for Heastan, showcasing that he, that Dana Bakrio fight, showed that he had heart, and he showed it off once again here against a very tough Garrett Armfield. All right, let's check out the odds that cashed. Heastan moneyline comes through at plus 165, although I believe I recorded this, or at least took note of the odds right before the card started, and we saw a significant amount of action on Garrett Armfield before fight time, so I think Heastan actually ended up closing closer to plus 200, which is crazy, but at least in terms of this podcast, we're going to say Heastan moneyline plus 165, by submission plus 900, round 3 plus 2500, and then the round 3 submission prop hits at plus 3,700. Absolutely crazy number there. And then the under 2.5 hits with about, I guess, 30-ish seconds left at plus 140. Again, big win for Heastan, 25 years old. He said he just turned 25, wants to get on the same card of his coach, Michael Chiesa, as they fight in Abu Dhabi, I believe, in August. I think that would be too quick of a turnaround for the UFC to actually make that happen, and it's not like anybody's clamoring to see Brady Heastan fight in Abu Dhabi, but that would be cool to see if he actually ends up getting on that card. But regardless, this was a kid that I was higher on coming off of The Ultimate Fighter, especially after he managed to rehab his knee and have surgery and all that, and really just come back as a better fighter. But I kind of overlooked him in this matchup, as I thought Armfield would do a better job with his defensive wrestling, keeping the fight upright, where he could utilize that stinging jab of his and striking advantage to probably could have ended up getting the finish here had he not have that brain fart. But good win for Brady Heastan here as he gets the third round submission victory over Garrett Armfield. It was a veterans-like performance for Lucas Almeida as he snaps his losing streak and picks up this big win over newcomer Timmy Kwamba. Now, actually, this is the second fight in Kwamba's UFC career, but it is the first that he's gotten at his actual weight class and with a full training camp. But unfortunately for him, it was the technical advantage of Almeida in the striking realm that proved to be too tough for Kwamba. Now, we can give Kwamba some credit for being able to battle back in that third round, land that takedown at the end of with about 1 minute left, and then land some big ground and pound to at least get that round in his favor. But the first two rounds were all Lucas Almeida. It seemed like Kwamba was actually going to be able to have a really good fight here, as it seemed he had the speed advantage and he landed some good stinging shots down the pipe to start the fight. But as Almeida started to find his range and timing, he started to cut off Kwamba as Kwamba was moving laterally very well, and then he started to land some shots down the pipe, and a couple of them actually put Kwamba on his butt. Very surprised that Almeida was unable to get Kwamba out of there, but still very impressive performance from Almeida. You expect guys like Almeida, again, who came in as an underdog in this matchup, to kind of just take that 0-2, 0-3 run to end their UFC career and end up hanging it up. But Almeida had different plans here, as he really gave a veteran lesson to Timmy Kwamba, who, again, maybe a little bit too young at this point in time to get into the UFC. Remember, he got a shot on the Contender Series, had a lackluster performance against, I believe it was Matteo Vogel, then has that short notice call up, and I think that was not the best look for him there. So they probably give him another shot, considering that his first loss was a short notice spot. But he's going to have to take some time off after such a hellacious beatdown that he got here from Almeida through the first two rounds. But again, credit for not giving up on himself and battling back in that third round. It was just too little too late at that point in time. All right, let's check out the odds that cash here. Back-to-back underdogs cash in yours. Lucas Almeida comes through at plus 165. By decision cashes at plus 600, and the over 2.5 cashes at plus 115. got 2 more fights to go. Can underdogs keep it going, or will the favorites get things back in their win column? Miles Johns picks up the unanimous decision victory over Douglas Silva D'Andrade in what played out to be a closer fight than I was expecting it. It was clear the threat of the power from both of these guys was lingering on the minds of both of them, hence why I was a little bit low output, but it was clear that Johns was the one landing the more powerful shots and actually was getting the reactions out of D'Andrade. I think it was something that either Bisping or Cruz mentioned. He's got to tighten up the optics. Like, if you guys have been listening to me for a while and watching these post-fight and media reaction shows, I talk about that a lot. When a fighter seems to respond or get hit by a shot that doesn't seem like it's that hard, but then they make it look like it was hard, it's going to impact the judges. And I think that was the case here, as D'Andrade was landing some good shots as well. And I think he was up, with a couple of those shots that he was landing, some nice head kicks, obviously, in that last round where he was able to rock Miles Johns a little bit. Surprised only one judge actually gave D'Andrade that final round, but I do feel confident enough that Johns won the first and second round. The first round was close. I thought he won the second round for sure. Third round close, but 2 judges still gave it to him. Closer fight than I was expecting, but again, Miles Johns very much believing in his power and using that to intimidate his opponents, to cause them to make mistakes so that he can follow up and land some big shots. I would like to see him follow up with a punch or 2 more after that big shot lands to try to find that knockout, or at least to try to catch his opponent off guard. And another thing I would love to see from Johns is use those calf kicks a little bit more. Use those kicks a little bit more, because anytime he was landing them, he was getting a huge reaction from D'Andrade. A couple of them almost even got D'Andrade off of his feet. So maybe toning in or honing in or tuning into that kick a little bit more in between all the big punches that he's throwing, that could cause his opponents to slow down or possibly even lead to a leg kick TKO next time around for John. So a good performance, very disciplined. The pace of the fight allowed him to be competitive in third round, as a lot of people have kind of given him flack, myself included, for being a bit of a gas bag. But since joining the Marathon MMA crew, he's done a great job in terms of honing in on being able to manage his gas tank over the course of 15 minutes better, so he doesn't get finished late, or he doesn't have to bend over heaving for a breath late in fights. So good performance for him there. All right, let's check out the odds that cash here. Johns comes through at minus 155, was closer to minus 120 earlier this week, so a little bit of action coming in on him. By decision plus 145 and over 2.5 cashes at minus 180. Great win for Miles Johns here against a veteran like Douglas Silva D'Andrade. I'm excited to see what's next for both guys. Johns calling out Ricky Simon. I believe Simon is fighting Lock Dog next week or the week after, if I'm not mistaken. That should be a great fight, but I would love to see Johns maybe in another co-main event slot, maybe not a main event yet, but a co-main event slot. He came through this time around. Let's see if he can do it again. He's climbing up the rankings of the bantamweights. Wouldn't be a bad idea to line him up with somebody in the rankings at this point in time, considering it could have been 4-0 had it not been for that mix-up with some medication that caused him to pop for steroids when he fought Dan Argueta and got that fight changed to a no contest. But this night belongs to him in the co-main event slot as he picks up a unanimous decision victory over Douglas Silva D'Andrade. And in the final fight of the night, the volatility of MMA shows its head once again, as Alex Perez has a very solid first round, actually gets all 3 judges to score it in his favor. He did a great job in terms of crashing the pocket against a guy who had a length and reach advantage there, or length and height advantage, I believe it was, but still managed to crash the pocket, land some big shots, have some good success with the calf kicks as well. Although Tyrod did have some good strikes down the pipe, it was clear that Perez was getting the better of those exchanges and landing more often and more accurately. But unfortunately for him, when Tyron wanted to get his grappling going, he was able to get that weird position in the standing. He pretty much had his back while standing, and then was able to get that weird torque to get Alex Perez to the ground and ultimately injure, maybe shatter the knee of Alex Perez. Maybe not shatter, I think I'm over exaggerating there, but it probably did some severe damage to that knee, and you saw Alex Perez go down in agony, and Tyra gets the victory by TKO officially. So second round TKO win for Tatsuro. Tyra makes it 16-0. That's a big win for him, and likely gets another top 5 guy in this next matchup. He's calling out Alexandre Pantoja, which is absolutely possible, especially when you consider consider that Pantoja just fought a guy in Steve Erceg who didn't really have a big win coming off of. So maybe Pantoja is next. Who knows? Steve Erceg is obviously still up there. But yeah, good win for, let's talk about the odds that cash first, and I'll talk about the post-fight interview and what Bisping was saying, because I have a little bit of an issue in regards to that. So odds that cash, Tyra moneyline minus 220 comes through by knockout plus 750, round 2 plus 650. Throw those two together plus 3,200, round 2 KO plus 3,200. Absolutely insane number there for Tyra. And then obviously the under 2.5 hits at plus 110. Now, in the post-fight interview, obviously we had Tyra calling out Pantoja, and it makes sense for the reasons I laid out earlier. But for Bisping to start off the interview by saying that was probably one of the best performances I've seen, he lost the first round on all 3 scorecards. What are you talking about? You've seen better performances than that. I don't know if he was just in the moment or didn't really know what to say. It was a smooth performance, probably not worthy of saying one of the best performances I've ever seen, especially when you have all 3 judges scoring against the guy in that first round. So very weird take there from Michael Bisping. But again, I think a lot of the times they kind of just say something off the cuff to try to encapsulate the moment or whatever it is. But regardless, Tyra gets the win, calls out Alexandre Pantoja. Alex Perez, unfortunately, probably going to be on the mend for a while now. That knee probably took a severe amount of damage in that spot. I don't know how quickly he could bounce back from this, but this is a matchup I would love to see eventually run back. Now, Perez, I believe, is 32 years old, so he's getting up there in age, and that's that's going to be tough to come back depending on how severe that knee injury is. But I love the stylistic clash here, right? We had the defensive grappling of Perez on showcase there. He was defending the back pretty well there. Who knows how the rest of the round would have played out if Tyra was able to secure a choke or not. But if Perez stayed within himself and then try to stay a little bit more disciplined in the following rounds, maybe he would have been able to keep Tyra from those situations. So again, not fully impressed with Tyra's wrestling once again, but he still always manages to find ways to get guys to grapple with him or create moments like this where he's able to grapple and then get to his jiu-jitsu and eventually pull off this weird TKO via injury moment that he had. So good win for Tyra at the end of the day in terms of getting a name like Alex Perez in his win column, and this could potentially set him up for a title shot. Again, Steve Erceg got one, I believe, off of defeating Alessandro Costa. It could end up happening here as well. All right, let's put a bow on the immediate reaction show here. Let's quickly recap the card. There was only one knockout, which came in the main event by injury. There were 3 submissions on the card, 7 decisions. Favorites went 7-4 on the night. And then the performer of the night for me, again, kind of a dull card all around, but I think the one that stood out the most to me was probably Lucas Almeida, who came in as an underdog and went out there and had some good success against Timothy Kwamba, dropping him numerous times through the first 10 minutes. Obviously had a little bit of a lapse in terms of his success in the last minute of the fight, but was doing a very good job throughout that and probably looked the most impressive out of anybody on the entire card, right? Again, Tyra lost the first round on all 3 judges' scorecards. So I'll just put that out there once again. So good performance there for Lucas Almeida. Who did you guys have as the performer of the night, and which of the odds that I showcased on the show did you guys end up cashing in on? Let me know. Hit that comment section below. Drop a like and subscribe. And we'll be right back to work for UFC Saudi Arabia on Monday with that new headliner between Robert Whittaker and Ikram Ali Askarov. A ton of other great fights actually on that card, so I'm very much looking forward to it. And the best thing about that card is the fact that it kicks off at noon Eastern time, 3 p.m. main card Eastern over there in Saudi Arabia on next Saturday. So very much looking forward to that. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Monday for the full MMA Lockcast breakdown. Oh, wait, sorry. Last thing, there's also PFL on Friday and then Bellator on Saturday as well. So a trifecta of events coming your way, and I will be dropping podcasts for all 3 of those cards as well. So stay tuned to this channel because there's a ton of breakdowns coming your way. All right, I'll see you guys on Monday. Peace.